Thanks. I always get so embarrassed when I hear my own bio and I'm like, she sounds exhausted. But I guarantee you I do sleep. So I want to start by acknowledging we are on unceded Wurundjeri land and to pay my respects to the Kulin Nation and any members of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community that are here today. I also want to acknowledge that as somebody who works in sustainability and systems change, that most of the solutions we need to implement are probably locked up in repressed knowledge systems of Indigenous and First Nations people around the world. So each of us can do as much as we can to help elevate and expose the opportunities. And here in Australia, we have one of the most beautiful untapped communities of knowledge. So that's my opening, and I was asked to share with you some of my projects. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm a designer. I studied product design. I wanted to solve problems. Things like toothbrushes annoyed me. So I went to design school, and a couple years in, I realized I was learning how to create crap to sell to idiots. And so I quit, and I moved down here from Sydney and studied social science, majoring in sustainability at RMIT, because I thought this is a fucking people problem, and I need to understand people. And so I did that, and then I built a career over the last 20 years, basically advocating for change globally around design, because essentially most of our environmental problems are related to extraction of resources for consumption. And I was always thinking, well, I learned design and I know what designers learn, and they learn how to create crap to sell to idiots. So I feel like we might want to intervene in that part of the system. As was mentioned, I did a TED Talk in 2013, which is like so long ago now. And it has been watched by lots of people. It was one of the most traumatizing experiences of my life, not for this talk, but ask me later. And I have actually given over like hundreds of talks now, including this is in Nairobi at the United Nations. But I wanted to share a little bit about my creative journey. I do run businesses, I do advise big companies, I do lots of different things. I'm an entrepreneur, but I'm also a creative person and I have to have creative outlets, otherwise I go nuts. So I'm going to share with you some of the projects that I have done, the impact they've had, and hopefully you can see that, you know, in order to make change in the world, all you need to do is get shit done. So I started off, you guys have walked down Swanston Street, you know these pillars? That was me. So when I was 25, there was a City of Melbourne competition to convert the now defunct guess what, guys? They used to sell newspapers. There was a guy who sat in one of them and sold newspapers, and then 7-Eleven killed that job. So they had all these real estate that were being covered in posters, and the City of Melbourne were like, we need to do something with it. And so I won this design competition to convert it into a micro shop. And we were one of the first places to sell keep cups and a bunch of other locally made environmentally responsible products. And now it's a crepe stand. It's been a crepe stand since I gave it up in 20 whatever. So long. Every time I walk past it, I'm like, I've never had a crepe from here because it would just be weird. But I did run that for 2 years, and it was really hard because for the first 3 months, nobody stopped. It's really strange. People in the city don't care about anything. They just want to get to where they're going. But then I got a lot of media coverage in the flight magazines like Jetstar's magazine, and suddenly everybody coming to Melbourne was like, oh my God, Melbourne is so cool. There's these pillars in the city that have all this really cool environmentally friendly stuff. And then suddenly everyone stopped, and then they became very popular, and suddenly all my artists made money and I stopped crying. Anyway, then I made an animation series called The Secret Life of Things, and this is Mr. Erickson. Some of you are old enough to find that funny. Some of you don't know what I'm talking about. You should look it up. Mr. Erickson is having an existential crisis because he was abandoned, specifically at this period, for a phone that had a camera. Because at that point in time, that was the big technological advancement. I know, I'm really dating myself. Anyway, he goes and learns all about his life, and he gets provided recommendations on how he could have been designed better. This animation won a bunch of awards and actually was put in permanent display at the Leonardo da Vinci Museum in Milan, which is very funny. And And I also designed a bunch of games. I got really into gamification because humans are essentially incentivized and motivated by play. And also, as you get older and the world tells you to be more, I don't know, pull up your butt kind of situation, you become less creative. It's true though, really. I'm older now. And you have to really work hard to not become that person. Fun fact, I walk my dog every day and I go on the swing. Like every day, I'm going on the swing as an adult person. Yeah, it's really fun. It's great. I'm sure it works out my abs as well. I don't know. Anyway, so I really think gamification is an amazing tool. If you're not familiar with it, it's using game mechanics in non-gaming environments. You're all susceptible to it. Every single app uses it, but you can also use it to create change. And that's a whole bunch of games, including this one called Designer Size, which is about creative problem solving, which I did a Kickstarter for, which was horrible. Don't recommend it. Or maybe do recommend it. Just learn through failing yourself. And at the same time, I had started other stuff. I was on New Inventors as a judge. No one in this room other than him probably knows who that is, what that is, but it was an ABC TV show. Anyway, I was pretty young and I was on this show and I had, built a bit of a career for myself here, and then I was selected in the first Melbourne Now at NGV, and then that's what's on the right, and then on the left is actually running this thing called the e-waste autopsy, which was where we got the old electronic waste from the NGV, and then we invited members of the public to pull it apart to learn how poorly it was made. And my favorite photo, which I don't have, is of the security guard who sat down and left his post to pull apart something. It was quite cute. We also ran a project called the Repair Workshops in 2011 in the basement of the old Donkey Wheel house. And that was funded by the City of Melbourne, and it was 5 days of repairing. When you go to donate your stuff at Vinnie's, if you leave it outside, it ends up in landfill, and it costs Vinnie's and all of the op shops millions of dollars because it gets mildew from moisture. Don't do that. So at that time, this was very common, and on Monday mornings, they would have to pay a lot of money. So we went to one store and we just showed up with a truck and took everything, and then got a bunch of artists and designers and locked them in the basement of a really creepy building for 5 days, and they came up with all these really cool reimaginations of them. And then we invited the general public to bring in their products to be repaired, and I forgot to include photos of that. I'm very sorry, but my favorite was this little old lady came in with the toaster she'd gotten in the 1940s for her wedding, and she even brought toast to test it, bread to test it. I know. She was a forward thinker, that lady. Yes, then I moved overseas. Then I did a PhD because I needed money and I needed something to do. And then I moved overseas and I founded something called the Unschool, and I lived and worked in Europe for the last 10 years. I only just came back home last year. Anyway, and I did this thing called the Circular Classroom with the Finnish education system. They get voted as the world's best education system every single year. It's freely available. It's a 5-part series for high school students on how to think in systems and design sustainably. And I work with a long-time collaborator who's a really talented graphic artist, so I can't claim the beautiful artwork here. She's just profoundly good. But anyway, I founded the Unschool. It's 10 years old now. We've had over 30,000 students come to it. It's not dissimilar to the fellowship that you guys have done. I'm sure you got a lot more money to do yours, or there was a lot more budget than we ever had. But essentially, we ran these immersive programs around the world. We ran 10 of these fellowships, including one in Melbourne, and in Kuching, in Malaysia, in Sao Paulo, in Brazil, and lots of different places where we would have these really immersive experiences where we teach systems thinking and creativity. And I was just checking the time, not my text messages. I was like, sorry guys, hang on, I gotta get back to someone. No. My whole thing is if you want to learn how to do something, you have to have an experience, either good or bad, and that experience is what actually gives you the input to then figure out how to do something. So a lot of the programs were very experiential. This is me being named Champion of the Earth. You might notice a gender problem. This is welcome to my life. Actually, I'm not the only woman who was awarded Champion of the Earth that year. I got it for science and innovation. The gentleman to the far right, or this guy, He's the brother of Berta Cassius, who is an indigenous Honduras woman who was murdered by a mining company. That's not allegedly, that they've actually been prosecuted and gone to prison for murdering her for protecting her lands from the mining industry. And so her brother had to accept that because of the fact that she had been killed. And I think that was one of the first times I really thought of like the big difference in the type of work that we can do and the cost that a lot of people have to endure for the passion that they have for their country. And in this case, I mean like the land that they come from. I was named it for my work in promoting sustainability in a different way, because that's what I always felt like. From the beginning, I was like, this is boring. When I started, it was really boring. It's much cooler now, right? Like people, I think, really lurked out that people like to go to the fun party, not the end of the world party. So anyway, I've had a lot of fun experiences, and I'm just conscious of time, but keep going. All right, cool. Because basically, I'm only halfway through my slides. This is really fun for me. Usually I have to like do really cerebrally heavy stuff and talk about like how to do like systems transformation. So just talking about projects is really fun for me. Okay, so when I was named Champion of the Earth, I was like, holy shit, do I get special superpowers now? Like, can I fly? Because it sounds like you should get, with that plastic award, also some sort of like superpower. No, you don't. I didn't try to fly. But one of my team was like, Leyla, you already have superpowers. She's like, you have the superpower of admitting when you're wrong. And I was like, is this a subtle jab? She was like, you have the superpower of thinking, loving problems. And so we made this everyday superpower toolkit where it was like, what are the 12 things that you need, that you have, that you can activate to help change the world. And it's freely available. Anyone can download it. I have a QR code at the end, guys, if you want to get direct access. And then, because I was named Champion of the Earth and the UN decided to start exploiting me, I did this project called The Anatomy of Action, which was an amazing collaboration with the United Nations Environment Programme. They gave me no money. Well, they gave me a very small amount of money. And they said, could you help design a project that will help everybody in the world live more sustainably? And I was like, sure, guys. That sounds like a great project. Anyway, I came up with this concept of like, what do you do every day? Like, yes, you eat food. Whoever, where are you? Who did the cookbook? Awesome. I also have a cookbook. It's called Hero Veg, and it is also about eating plants. I made it during COVID. It was my lockdown project. Anyway, so basically, every day we take action with our hands, and it's such a long, complicated story, but it's all online. But essentially, like, we looked at the last 5 years, and this was done in 2017, the last 5 years of peer-reviewed scientific data on if collective actions was taken, in particular lifestyle areas, what would have significant impact on the planet. Obviously, food, but also where you keep your money is really important. So divesting from unethical banks is a great action. Anyway, we came up with all of these actions, and we created a mematic, your hand, food, stuff, move, money, fun, really easy to remember. We made several videos. And this is a campaign that the UN now runs. These are all of the actions. We made all of these really cool graphics. There's a website. The campaign runs, we have 120 of these assets we made that are all available under Creative Commons so people can adapt them and reuse them. The UN runs this as a campaign every year that they encourage people to, take action and pick which one of the actions makes sense and so forth. So yeah, I believe that whilst I'm a designer and I learned how to do design, that everyone is a citizen designer for a positive future. And what that means is that every action you take in the economy has an impact. And the choices that we make can be leveraged to help to transform the world around us. And I'm sure all of you guys in this room identify with that. But I don't think it's as simple as like everybody having to convert to sustainability, because it's not a religion. And a lot of people don't necessarily have the luxury of time and resources. And I'm not saying that it is just a luxury to care about the planet, but I do think we live in a very socially inequitable world. And so for those of us who are passionate about this, a lot of the things is making it easy to make better choices. And that is really a design challenge, right? So usually I teach how to, do this, love problems. But I'm also like, how chefs don't cook for themselves because they don't know how to take their own advice? that a thing? That's what I think. Anyway, whatever. I was named champion of the earth. I realized I didn't know how nature worked. I had this huge, embarrassing story with someone about a coconut. It's a whole other thing. I didn't know that a coconut was actually a seed for a coconut tree. Did you guys know that? I thought it was just delicious. And I'd just been named champion of the earth. I was like, oh, this is so embarrassing. So I did what any rational person would do, and I bought an abandoned farm in rural Portugal. And then I spent 4 years learning how to be an organic farmer. I converted the whole farm. I had donkeys and goats and sheep. I spent 4 years living like this. I redesigned all of the buildings into this very sexy eco retreat place, and we would have workshops and stuff, and then we'd host these open days, which is there. I love cooking for people as well. And we had hundreds of people come. Oh, 5 minutes, shit. And yeah, this was one of my goats. Oh, they're so cute, the goats. I had a donkey called Tiny Dancer. It's a whole other story. Yeah, and then I made a natural swimming pool, which was one of the coolest things, which is like a biofiltration system. Very fun. Anyway, so that's a whole other story. I lost it because of COVID. I mean, I didn't lose it. The farm is still there, but I had a financial crisis because of COVID, so I no longer have a farm. But I do have all of the things I learned from it, and that is incredible. And again, back to my overarching message here of participating and being willing to fail. Like, I often do a talk of all of the ways I fucked up trying to be a farmer, and it's extensive. It's amazing how hard it is to grow a broccoli. You should feel so grateful because they take months, and you have to fight other living things that want to eat it before you do. And one of them is a donkey. And a lot of little white, what are they called? Cabbage moths. Anyway, so, I think one of the biggest challenges is we often get stuck in the system that we're in because as social animals, humans can't help but maintain the status quo and participate in normative practices. This is where my sociology comes out. But basically, it's in all of us to challenge the status quo in different ways. And I would think that that's essentially what most of my work is, even a farm. It is to figure out how to kind of push the boundaries and to always be willing to design a better world, because that's one thing I've also learned is that the world we live in is a product of the actions of every individual that exists. So we designed this world. Yes, nature did a pretty good bloody job at it, but the world we live in, the Anthropocene, that is a product of, human generation, and the challenges that we face are solvable because we made most of the problems. And, really this is about having the intent and integrity to be willing to push beyond just iteration and to experiment. And I believe that most of the problems in the world is that individuals are told that they don't have the power to make a difference. And if I think of my own story, I don't have any superpowers other than talking. I think that I do actually have that. And I do it all the time. But I'm very comfortable on stages now because I've done it so many times. But let me tell you, the first few times, I was really shitting myself. But the world wants us to believe that we don't have the power to make change, but we do. We all have agency, and agency is something that we can cultivate and we can use as an energetic tool to catapult us out into the world. And we also have the ability to expand our sphere of influence. I was loving, you guys and your social media. I just can't be bothered, but I'm all for it as a platform. I mean, I use LinkedIn, but I think that this is the thing, the world is constantly changing and there's many mechanisms that we can leverage to help to create a different conversation. And in the moment of time that we're in right now where the world seems to be getting worse, I would also encourage you to think about, all cycles of transformation do require some form of, shitdom. So, something bad has to always happen before something gets good. So hopefully we're in the about to get good phase. Because the one thing I do know to be true, and not said by me, but Heraclitus, a 500 BC philosopher, is that, no man or woman can ever step into the same river twice because everything is constantly changing. And so change is constant. Therefore, the opportunity for the world to change in better ways is also constant. And I'll leave you with one of my favorite thinkers, which is Buckminster Fuller. And I'm pretty sure he stole this from someone else, but it is the quote that if you want a future that is better than today, then you need to help design it. And here are some QR codes for you. Thank you. I'll leave that up. You can.